The Canvas learning management system is a platform in use at ASU. And one of the things about Canvas that people most frequently cite as a good thing is the Canvas community. What is the community? Well, for some people, when they talk about community, they're talking about the platform, the software that we host all of this in. It also is the content that's provided by Instructure. So rather than all of the millions of people around the world that use Canvas having to try to keep their own documentation up to date and try to figure out what's happening with the software, Instructure has a team of 13 people that keep all of the documentation and the release notes and the video and all that stuff up to date as Canvas changes. And Canvas changes every month. It's not, there's no versions, it's cloud hosted software. So we're constantly trying to make relatively small adjustments to that and keep all the documentation up to date too. So nobody has to worry about that. So we've got the platform with all this content provided by the company, by Instructure. And then we have the most important thing are the people that make up the community. So when I think about community, I don't just think about, you know, the software with people logging into it. We think about all of the people around the world who use the software and are interested in helping each other, whether they're in social media, in the platform, in Facebook Live, whatever it is, that is the community. Okay, and the idea is very simple. It's been simple since the beginning. So if you go back 10 years ago, the idea, 10 years ago, the world was a little different than it is now, maybe. And with learning management systems, sort of the default mindset in the industry was hide everything, lock everything down, only give the information to specific people, put it behind a paywall, and you know, the administrator will know, right? Our plan was like, let's put out as much information as we can to as many people as possible, give them a way to talk to each other, and they'll be a lot more successful, right? So that's why the community is very open, and should be a level playing field. So let people talk to each other. Most people come to the community with one question. You know, they're trying to figure out how to post their grades, or how do I add an assignment to the module, like whatever it is. They've got some specific thing they're trying to figure out. But when it works the way we like it to, they come with that one question. They get complete and accurate information as their answer. But along the way, they also become aware of other people like themselves, people that use the software, and learn from them. This is why I do what I do with the software. You know, this is the pedagogy, or the technique, or these are my strategies. Users can tell each other those sorts of things 100 times more effectively than a software company can, right? So the next question a lot of people ask is, who gets access to this? Who can be a participant in this if they want to? The answer really is anybody who uses Canvas. So if you're a software administrator, or an educator, a student, anyone who wants to in the world can participate. We also have a thing called Canvas Free for Teacher, and it is a free version of the software. It's not a freemium limited tool set type model. It's actual full production instance of Canvas that anybody in the world can create a teacher account and start creating courses and start sharing enrollment with their students. Now, you can't use Free for Teacher to do things like integrate with your student information system or other admin level type things. But if you're a teacher or a student, or both, you can use Free for Teacher, which means you can be a part of the community as well. So everybody from, you know, the most prestigious Ivy League university down to people homeschooling somewhere can use the same platform and be a part of the same community. This is a login where you can see if you've already got an account because your school uses Canvas, great, help find it, or you can create a free account. Either way, once you're in Canvas, you can click on the help menu, and unless your institution has modified it, which they can if they want to, you'll find a link to the community. Ask the community, read the guides. Those things will get you into the community. Most people, I'll say, don't come in this way though. They are Googling, how do I do something in Canvas? And they end up in the community where hopefully they find their answer. But either way, you can go to community.canvaslms to get started, or you can click on the help menu in Canvas, or follow Google search results. To give you some context of what's happened more recently, back when I started using Canvas in 2010, the company had maybe, I think, 18 employees, and we had no documentation. The thought was, it's so easy to use. People will just figure it out. They don't need to have how-to guides or anything like that, right? There was a very rudimentary message board system where people were talking back and forth with each other and saying, hey, how do you do this thing? And engineers were saying, tell me more about that. What is it you're trying to do? Let me see if I can build that. And it was this really sort of chaotic, fun, Wild West type environment. If you flash forward a bit to a couple of years ago, at that time we had around 36 million page views a year, and 285,000 people in the forums. So, in 2010, 2011, maybe 500 people had grown to 286,000, which we thought was pretty darn great. Like, this is pretty exciting. And about 22,000 of those 286,000 would log in and do something each month. They would comment, they would post a question, vote for a feature idea, they'd do something, which again, we thought was pretty amazing. We have around 1,300 guide articles in the community, and at that time we had 1,000 pieces of content being added every month by users. So we could say, look at all of these ideas and questions and suggestions and how-to guides and things that people are contributing to this like live repository. If you look at this year, things were normal for, well, I suppose for all of us, going into February, and then in March, everyone in the world tried to get online all at the same time. Some people were better supported than others, but a lot of people were trying to come online for the very first time. And in 1 month, we got over 10 million page views. We jumped more than doubled our user count. We gained more new users in the first part of 2020 than we had gained in the 10 years previous to. And we jumped up to, at one point, I know the slide here says 34K, but we actually had, one day we had 46,000 active discussions and questions going on that one day. If you look at our activity, here you can see that on an average year, we should have around 170, 180 page views a day in the community. And we had one day where we had 690,000. So massive uptick in activity. Okay, great. I'm gonna run through my slides quickly. So rewind. Community is the platform. It is also the content. Most importantly, it's the people. The idea should be easy, is give people access to information, let them talk to each other. They'll be a lot more successful, hopefully. Anybody in the world can participate. So this is the map I was talking about when I said free for teacher. These are in the month of March, with the exception of parts of Asia, Africa, and Iceland, people were using free for teacher or logging into free for teacher from these places, the Middle East. Like I said, anybody in the world can access this. Here's a screen that shows, if you want to get into Canvas, you can use your school provided account, or if you don't have one, you can use a free one. But anybody in the world then that has access to Canvas should have access to, on the help menu, a link to get into the community if they want to. And then here are the numbers that I was blabbing away about, apparently in the dark, where you can see that we had how many page views and discussions and questions and things over the years, the growth there. And this is the slide that I was on before we stopped or went back and did the rewind. Here you can see the 689,000 page views on March 30th versus an average of 1 year of 178,000 page views. So we saw, my point was that we just saw this massive influx of new people, and we saw the community scale, actually. There were a lot of new people who were just trying to figure out, how do I get logged in? How do I share things with my students? How do I get a video conference set up? But we also had people who also were stuck at home who have been doing this for a while, and they were jumping in and answering questions and helping the new people. We created on the fly, we tried to find gaps in what people were looking for. So the questions people are asking versus the content that's available. And then we're plugging in, like, you know, how do I get started with video conferencing? How do I do these things? If I'm an admin, how do I take a course template and push it out across 1,000 new courses so that my teachers have something to start with? You know, like all of this sort of like emergency type activity was happening. But here's the homepage of the community. Again, you can see the contingency resources. We've sort of moved up and to the right there. In the beginning of this massive increase, we just had a big old, like, getting started, come here, you know. But it's broken down again by role. So if you're an instructor, if you're a student, admin, hoping to find things that are suited for you. We also have our guides in multiple languages. I think we've got 11 languages right now that they're published into, but you can see all the different types of guides here as well. Again, I mentioned our guides we keep our guides up to date with the changes in software, and we have how-to guides as well that are more focused on, like, a briefer subset of the things that people want almost all the time. So we have more comprehensive guides for administrators and things like that. But then for people who just need the basics, need it quick, we've got a how-to guide. The Q&A has evolved over the years. At one point, there was a time when we could answer all of the questions that came in. We had a big graph on the wall that, like, okay, we got 29 new questions today, let's answer them. And now that we have, you know, 45,000 people a day, and we still have the same staff that we had 10 years ago, I think to me, it's amazing that, like, we had that huge increase and nothing crashed, nothing went offline. You know, it stayed up, but we can't ever hope to answer all the questions anymore. Like, those days are gone. Not with 45,000 people a day, or 30,000 people a day in there. But there is a Q&A where people can go and they can ask questions, get an answer. Most of the answers are coming from other users at this point. We have super users, we have advocates, we have what we call the Canvas coaches, which are a group of people who help run the community. But for the most part at this point, it's a user-to-user community. You see there are all discussions, all questions. You can get a flavor of the sorts of things that people are asking about. How do I list what courses as a course admin? In the new quiz tool, how do I do X? There's not a lot of participation in the community in anything except English. Spanish and Portuguese are starting to pick up quite a bit, though. And I'd love to see the fact that people are in there asking and answering questions in other languages. The release notes, again, Canvas changes. In the background, Canvas changes almost constantly. For users, the things that people can see, it changes once a month. And for Canvas administrators that have to keep on top of what those changes that are coming, so they can test things, they can alert their users if it's something that affects them. We have the release notes, and those again are in multiple languages as well, and broken out by product. The feature idea process has evolved over the years. Like I said, in the very beginning, the engineers were just in discussion boards talking directly with users, saying like, hey, what is it you want us to build? And let me run off and try and build that. Over the weekend, I built you a new whatever. How do you like it? And over time, as we've gotten more and more people involved, both in the development side of things and on the user base, that process has had to become more formal. But essentially, the root of it is anyone in the world can come and suggest, hey, I think Canvas would be better off if we had X feature. And then every single idea that gets submitted gets vetted by people on the community team. We look at it for, is it something you can actually do in Canvas already? Is it something that our product team has already evaluated and said, no, we'll never build that because it would have this other deleterious effect on people? Is it 3 ideas submitted as one, and so people can't really vote on a part of it, right? But if it's a new idea, it will get its time in the sun, and that gets a certain run. And if enough people vote for it, it will stay as part of the cohort of ideas. If no one else really seems to care, it will fall off after 6 months. It will disappear. So that's how we keep it down to around anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 actively voted ideas at a time. Those ideas are one important source of input for our product team. So they're looking at input from support, from security, from client interviews, from lots of different sources. But one of those is a regular process where what we call customer success meets with product and says, okay, these are the top reported things that people want. And can we build them? When can we build them? How's the progress on that going? The ideas also are helpful when, let's say, a given product manager who's in charge of, let's say, discussions, says, okay, we're going to open up the hood, we're going to work on discussions. What are the top main things that people have identified for discussions, and what are the use cases and the pain points and the scenarios? They'll go back and kind of treat those feature ideas as a knowledge base or a repository of information holistically, not just responding to each individual idea. Sometimes it can be frustrating because you'll see an idea has been sitting in there for years and it hasn't been built and it has lots of votes. What you're not seeing are the ones that have been built and then taken out of the pool because they're no longer there, right? So you see it's a sort of a echo chamber in that way. You can also, in that area of the community, see, okay, these are all the things that we're working on currently. These are the things that have been built and are in the beta environment being tested. These are the things that will be in the release 2 Saturdays from now. So you can get a sort of a look at the roadmap that way. And then we also have, events, we have live events. So we call them Canvas Live. Most of the time, those are educators who are volunteering to present. I use Canvas with this particular math editor, and I want to give a presentation on that. Or there's 16 people in the world that are really interested in developing this, this certain thing. Let's get together and have a live event around that. We also put live events into the schedule for our partners and sometimes for our engineers who are doing like Ask Me Anything sessions, that kind of thing. But there is a live component. And so here's more about that. You can see upcoming things and featured things. We have, like I mentioned, our advocacy program. You can become a Canvas advocate. You self-identify. In order to become an advocate, you need to say, I am an unabashed fan of Canvas. I'm fine telling people that. I'm willing to do something to improve my own proficiency with Canvas. I'll set up a professional development plan for myself, and I will do an act of service. I will create a workshop for my colleagues. I will dedicate myself to answering a certain number of questions of other users. I'll do something as a service component. If you'll do those 3 things, then you can be identified as an advocate. You can join the advocacy program, have access to the advocates only area. Advocates often get some little swag or some gifts from us. And sometimes we have events for advocates at live events, or we did, where we'll have a dinner, we'll have a gathering of people, which is kind of fun. But if this is new to you and you're wondering, like, what can you do? What's an opportunity for you? Here are a few things that you could do, sort of maybe in a descending order of complexity. And then I wanted to let you know that very soon we will have a new platform. So we're getting ready to migrate from our old platform, which is being canceled by the owner of that platform. And so moving to a new platform, we'll have better opportunities, fresher software. We can do more things with the community. The basic premise will stay the same, but we'll have maybe some better capabilities around scalability, extensibility, mobile access, things like that. We also have a Canvas store coming very soon, where you'll be able to purchase or use gift codes to get apparel and different Canvas swag. That should be soft launching in the next few weeks, and then really ramping up around October. I mentioned earlier that we are also, as a company, we try to engage with people where they live. So we're doing Facebook Live sessions, engaging on Twitter, Facebook groups, wherever people feel most comfortable. Okay, and that is the end of my slides. So do we have questions? Any comments?
Scott, I have a question. This is Pedro Hernandez from Santa Clara University. Do you, can you share anything more about what are you guys thinking about evolving further the discussion forums? That's a very important feature for most courses, and just want to know if you have any other plans to, well, what are your ideas about improving those or developing them further? Thank you.
I mean, you're absolutely right. If you, the whole premise of having an LMS in the first place, if you look at maybe the top 5 things why people want to have an LMS, being able to do online discussions is obviously a fundamental part of that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Our discussion tool is kind of stale at this point. I actually met with a team from product about 10 days ago, and we went through all of the help tickets that have been coded as something to do with discussion forums. You know, what are the top trends in the support data tell us? What are the top feature ideas that are related around discussions? What has been coded from CSM interviews with admins? You know, when they do their regular calls with their clients, they code their notes so you can see overall what are the trends there. We went through all of that data, and we came up with, I think, 12 things that would improve the discussions. So now that goes into what's called scoping and prioritization. So you have a finite amount of resources. You have an overall schedule of other things that you're doing, and you have work that if I do this thing now, it will cost me a certain number of hours. If I do this thing in conjunction with another project that's related, I could get it done more quickly. Right? So they're going through that process right now. I can't tell you specifically, okay, we are going to change the way that you can sort posts on April 13th. You know, I can't tell you a specific timeline and specific features that will be developed, but I can tell you that discussions is something that our product team is focused on right now.
Okay, well, if I may just for one more second,
Sure.
What I would love to see is the ability to not just like a post, but to allow the students to engage in more critical thinking by having like categories of contribution. Is this a question? Is this a request for more information? And the ability to make those flexible, customizable for our needs, depending on the course. Because just liking is too much like Facebook, and it really diminishes the
Yeah.
students' motivation to engage. So having something that allows for more nuanced contributions would be really welcome.
And again, I can't promise anything, but one of the features that we talked about was the ability to specify different types of responses. So like in a forensics type interaction, you've got different types of, you have a more structured conversation. And I know that's one of the options they're looking at, is a way to create different types of responses within a discussion. Okay. And again, I really apologize about the slides not showing up. Okay, any other questions?
I have one.
Sure.
So one of the things we were looking at for equity, and I've done a lot of pedagogical trainings recently, and one of them was that students should be able to, it's kind of a catch-22. So, I'm sorry, my name is Janae Romero. I'm from Pacific Coast College in Pasadena. To create equity, you should allow students to actually look at the discussion post prior to them being able to post, so that they can kind of get a feel for the tone of the discussion. Most of us don't. We like the feature where you have to submit before you can actually see the discussion board or the discussion thread, because you wind up getting the same answers over and over again.
Sure.
Do you think that there will be a way for a preview section where you could kind of preview it, but you can't post on it until you've posted?
I'm kind of in that category of people that used to use software and now mainly goes to meetings and sends email and doesn't actually get to use the software. So I'm trying to remember exactly how that works now. I thought you could make it available to students but not allow them to post yet. Is that not true?
I don't have that feature. Does anyone else online have that feature?
So just to make
Pedro
sure.
looks like he's about to tell me.
Yeah. Hi, Jeanette. I haven't gone into the discussion configuration in a few weeks, so I'm a little hazy on my memory on this, but when you set up the discussion, there are a whole bunch of parameters that you can set up. The one that I always define is that students have to post before they can reply.
I have that one. I use it all the time.
Yeah, and then you can set the opening of date for the discussion as well as a closing date. But
No, that's not what I mean. What I'm saying is, like I said, a lot of the conversations have been around equity and marginalized students not being able to, not posting well because they don't understand the tone of the discussion board, or they don't see what I'm saying? And so yeah. No, I don't want them to post after reading everyone else's post to kind of formulate their answer. I want them to have their answer prior to and then post. But because of the way things are moving towards being more equitable, I've been in like 5 trainings, and all of them have said the students should be able to look at the discussion board, the discussion thread prior to being able to post, which to me seems almost like cheating. But I see some head shaking. Yes, so I'm just curious about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually looking in a test course right now at the options for a discussion. And I see the availability dates and the option, like Pedro said, to post before replies, but I don't see specific settings for allow read-only access on this date, now allow to post on this date. What I can do is go back. I still have access to the notes from the discovery call that I was talking about earlier. I have access to those notes, so I can go back and add a comment to that effect.
Janet, the only solution that I can think of is that maybe you can, and I have not done this, so it's just an idea, is to put a certain group of students in a section and set the parameters for that section different than the rest of the group. But I really
that might be a good idea. That would be a good idea.
I really don't know if that'll work, but that's a possibility.
Yeah,
Could you both?
breaking them up into their own groups, but I'd still have the discussions, the settings for the discussions, excuse me, would be the same.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Well, I mean, it's a thought.
so if I understand correctly, what you're wanting them to do is to see the discussion prompt and possibly see other students' discussion posts before the date at which they're responsible for participating. Is that correct, or are you only wanting them to see the discussion prompt?
No. This the second option you gave, and I guess it's because the idea is, are we because Canvas has always come up as, is it equitable for the
Mm-hmm.
students? And that was one of the biggest things that keeps coming up in every, like I said, every training I've been in or webinar. It's been about equity and just, how are we allowing these students who are marginalized to outperform or perform?
Mm-hmm.
If they, English as a second language, they don't quite understand the question, they may need help. And so I'm just curious about the equity of it. Excuse me, the equity of it all.
Janet, if I may, one last comment that I'll have, and I'll shut up, I promise, is
It's okay.
to maybe
I
think
welcome
about
it.
it as scaffolding the discussion experience over the quarter or the semester. And like, if you're doing discussions every week, like I do, leave the first 3 or 4 open, meaning everyone can see everything from the beginning, but then shift, so like remove the scaffold and say, now you have to first post before you can reply, or before you
That's
can
a good
see
option.
anybody else's ideas.
That's a good option. Okay.
So that way they're seeing everything for a while, they get the feel, and then you can support them as you move to that switch date and say, so now we're going to change to where you first have to contribute before you can see everybody else. And that's to encourage independent thinking and all of that.
That's a good option.
I don't know. For me personally, it's kind of affirmation that the 2 questions that have come up have been about discussions, because I've been sort of trying to, carry the flag for discussions for the last little while. So that's good. All right, Ashley, I think I'm going to hand it back to you.
So, sorry, Scott, one last thing.
Sure.
If we have suggestions based on student experience for interface improvements, let's say that location of the buttons for submitting assignments, or ability to configure, this is something that has come up with my colleagues, greater flexibility to configure the look and feel in the different components,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's the look of the discussion forum or the look of how the assignment page looks and all of that. Do we send them to you for now?
The best way to get those sort of incremental user experience improvements made to Canvas is to come to the community. You can go to the ideas area.
Okay.
If you want to be a good citizen, come to the content and search and see if you can find out if there's already a feature idea for that thing.
Okay.
If you do find it, and there's a very good chance that you will, go in there and vote on it and contribute a use case. Like, this is also important to my students, because in my discipline we use the tool a certain way, and they need that kind of information. That context is super helpful for the product managers when they're trying to understand what people need the software to do. If the feature idea does not exist, you can click on share a new idea, and it is purposefully kind of hard to find, because we want people to search around and look to see if the idea exists before they create a new idea. But you can come in, and again, you can give a title, a description, maybe some screenshots, attach some screenshots. This is what I would like Canvas to do. And then if it's something that catches fire, it will make it into the direct attention of a product manager. If it's something that maybe it's kind of a slow burn, but it stays there, when they get to looking at that tool set comprehensively, they'll probably end up consuming it at that point, right?
Okay. And in the transition to the new platform that you mentioned, is everything going to remain for the users the same, or are we expecting to see some changes in how it functions?
It will remain basically the same. So this is, don't tell anybody, you're not supposed to see this. This is the new platform. So you can see, if I go to the old system versus the new, it looks very close.
Okay.
It's we're going to do a quote unquote lift and shift. So all of the content, all the people, all the authentication method, all of that stuff we're shifting over. So on day one, when you used to come here, you should just end up here, and all the ideas and discussions and all that stuff will be moved over.
And our campus-specific adaptations, or I don't know what you call them, like templates, will they change automatically to the new look, or will they stay fixed?
You mean
like Santa Clara has its own version of Canvas. We call it Camino.
Oh, so this wasn't connected to Canvas at all? This won't affect your actual instance of Canvas, so it will only affect the community if you go there.
Okay.
So all your courses and everything won't be affected.
All right, great. Well, thanks so much.
I have a question, one more, I'm sorry.
Sure, no.
For the peer review.
Yeah.
Is there a way to, so the peer review, I use it a lot, especially when you're in academia, you want the students to start understanding the importance of peer reviewing documents. I'm noticing that on the peer review, it doesn't always show up for the students, and they don't always get the rubrics. And I've done it at more than one college. I've used the peer review feature at more than one college, and it's typically the same functionality across the board. They may see it, they may not. The notifications, while they do come, the students aren't clear on them, and in the community, there's not a lot of information on really what to do. So I typically post the how-to document from the community into the assignment, but I still run into issues with it showing up. And in fact, one of the trainings I did on Canvas over the summer, I had a peer review as well, and I got to see it firsthand. It's not very user-friendly.
So that like the students realizing that that there is a peer review requirement and then being able to find information about it.
Yes.
It's hard. It's difficult, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And even setting one up. So when you set up the peer review, you have the date in which the peer review is disseminated amongst the students. There's no date to make it for the peer review to stop. And there's also there really isn't any information. Like, it may show up on your to-do list, but if your to-do list is off, or if there's an issue with it, you won't get it.
I'm looking right now in the community view, peer review assignments, peer review change. Students can't see the peer review they posted. What I'm hoping to find is, yes, there it is. Power up peer review. Oh, that one is old. Make peer reviews not terrible. Okay, you know what I'm going to do is I will do a little research on this myself, and then I'll make sure that the product manager who's over the team that's over peer reviews will get your feedback.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Ashley, this time I mean it. Handing it back to you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Again, if you have any other questions after this, you have his contact information and you can reach out. And yeah, thank you for joining us today.